Ay, 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 ay. Honestly, like knowing it was coming probably made it worse. But that sucked. That was pretty rough. Good job. It's pretty amazing how everything kind of falls into place with the way they're telling this story. The same thing happened in the game. The sequence of events plays out, and just the luck that's involved. It almost feels like it was fate that it was going to happen, and it was going to happen this way. It starts with Abby. She's on that ridge. She's about to give up. She's freezing. She's about to head back to the lodge, the mansion, the chalet, and she hears the horse. And that just starts one event, which leads to the next, which leads to the next, which leads to the next. And it kind of ends in this really shitty way. It ends with a round of golf is what it ends with. But yeah, it's just pretty crazy how easily Abby could have missed Joel and Dina on patrol. Really would have changed things, but wouldn't have been as good of a story. As much as it sucks that things had to happen this way. I get it. It was a curious choice to split up the patrols like they did. It starts originally in the game with Joel and Tommy, and then we have Ellie and Dina. Jesse's, I don't know, off doing something else until he meets up with them while they're stoned, banging. I'm just like wondering what goes into those decisions. Why split up these people? I'm guessing it started with having Joel and Tommy split up because Tommy has a family now, and he needed to be there to fight the Horde to have this other, big event happening. To raise the stakes of the episode, just kind of everything's going to shit. So maybe it started there, and that led to a series of decisions that came after to switch things up. I wonder why they didn't want to have Ellie and Dina having that moment, smoking weed in the library basement. Just a different medium. I can't really understand always why they make these choices, but I'm sure they had a good reason. Abby's slip and slide down the hill I found hilarious for some reason. It ends in a really shitty way for her. And we get the Horde coming out under the snow. Really similar to the playable sequence. Like, I really like when they, people that have played the games, people that have played them backwards and forwards a million times, put thousands of hours into them like I have. You just notice all these little things, these nods, these Easter eggs. Like, it's so small to have her do the same thing she does in the game, sliding down a hill. Like, it doesn't serve much of a narrative purpose except to get her to the bottom of the mountain, to the pile of infected. But I don't know, it's just cool when they do stuff like that. I just appreciate when they match things to the game. But that fucking dog pile of the infected under the surface of the snow was disturbing. It was just so cool how the snow was churning as they started to wake up and notice Abby was there. And it reminded me a lot of Dune, and when the sandworm, is coming to eat, and it liquefies the sand, and it just kind of, I don't know, it just the effects, the way they did the effects reminded me of that. That bloater showdown was definitely one of the highlights of the episode for me. Just watching Tommy cook that dude, it was so awesome. Just watching its flesh sizzle like that, right when Tommy finally takes it down, it was just so nasty and visceral. And it really sold it. The CGI in this season so far has been like way better than last season. Last season looked fine. It was fine. But I'm guessing they have a bigger budget this season. The show was successful. They didn't know if it would be in the first season. And it's been such a big hit that I'm sure they upped the budget a little bit. And I feel like it shows. That bloater sequence was epic. It moved a lot better. It's hard for me to describe. But it just had more natural movement. It just didn't look like, a rendered CGI character, basically. I just loved the way its flesh sizzled. It was just like, it was so good. I love that. When we get to the chalet, it just kind of sinks in how not on the same page Abby and her crew are. I feel like they're driving that point home even harder in the show. Just the way Mel is so disturbed. She's pushing back on all the things Abby's trying to do. I found it really interesting how Mel took the time to kind of reassure Dina and Joel, more specifically Joel, that was the crazy part, that, we're just putting you down for an hour. It's not a big deal. Just kind of like let this happen. Like, it just goes to show you how different Mel is, which they touch on that in the game, right? That Mel's never killed anyone like that before, as Manny says. And she's just not really as much of a fighter. She's more of a medic. And it just, I don't know, it just really sunk in that moment for me. Just the fact that she took the time to reassure them. She looks Joel in the eyes and she's like, I promise, or something like that. And yeah, I don't know, I just found that interesting. But yeah, Abby's trying to act tough, trying to convince herself that she's someone who she really isn't. I feel like that's kind of what they were alluding to at the beginning of the episode when she's talking to herself in her dream. Her younger self says something like, "Who are you?" or "I don't recognize you," or something like that. And I feel like they're just trying to drive that point home where she's unrecognizable to herself. She would have no idea who she had become and who she was, her younger self looking at her older self. So yeah, she's just totally lost herself, essentially. It's kind of a recurring theme in this story, and we'll see more of, I'm sure. I found it interesting too how Joel just kind of nods along, almost in agreement with Abby when she says, "Oh, there's just some things in this world that everyone agrees are just fucking wrong." But yeah, whether it's conscious or subconscious, he knows what he did is wrong. But I can say, as a parent, there's only one choice in that situation. There's no other way to do it. So he might be nodding along with her, but yeah, just like he says to Ellie at the end of the game, I would do it all over again. Another fantastic use of game music. It sounded like they're using a rendition of All Gone, right when Joel dies and Ellie crawls over to him. I just appreciated that they brought that theme back. It's a really depressing song. I mean, it's in the title. Yeah, I just appreciate when they kind of bring that stuff back out and use it in the show, especially at moments like this. I definitely felt like Joel's death was a lot more visceral in the game. I don't know why they chose to do it differently, but the broken golf club in the neck, it was very anticlimactic. It might just be because of how we know the game goes. And it was just, they have that tinnitus sound come in, and it's more from Ellie's perspective, I would almost say, than the show is, but that's just probably a direct result of it being a different medium. You're not stuck to certain perspectives as much as you are with a playable character in a game as opposed to a show. But yeah, it just didn't hit quite as hard for me. It still hurt like a bitch to watch. And despite knowing it was coming, it's really stung. My wife, especially, doesn't know much about the second game. And she sat down to watch this one with me, and she was just like she couldn't believe it. It hurt her for sure. But yeah, they did a good job overall. This episode was like super exciting. It was so fun until the end there. But yeah, it's definitely probably my favorite episode of the show so far. They did a good job. They did a really good job. Felt a lot like Game of Thrones, like The Long Night, or almost like World War Z at certain moments. Definitely a very different vibe from the game. The Horde aspect is much more, obviously with the mycelium in the ground and everything, it's much more hive mind like. They're much more intelligent and stuff, but definitely, which is what they're hinting at with the stalkers and everything else they've gone over so far with the infected this season. But yeah, I'm going to keep it short today. I'm about to get on a plane and head from Poland to California for a wedding. So I appreciate you guys watching. I'm going to be shooting more of this stuff when I get there. It's not going to look this good. I'm going to have to do it on my phone. But I want to keep following along with the show and keep this going. But yeah, it was a good episode. I liked it a lot. Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate your time. I know it's valuable, and I will see you next week.